Hey guys, Youngblood with you for the 36th episode of the Inbox, and today we're going to start off with Editor, who asks, hey, are there any information on how they're going to manage the game servers? So will it be Continental, or will it be server browser, or something else? So the way this is actually going to work, and the way they're going to be taking advantage of things is like the Google Compute, and where you're actually got people all over the world actually playing within the same cloud-based servers. Now, to expand on that just a little bit, the way that I understand this is going to work, and I think this is the way it's been basically stated since the beginning, is that there's going to be the global instance manager, the kind of the Galaxy server, as they're calling it, and everybody lives within that Galaxy server. But what it's actually doing is it's managing all the different instances that take place within the universe of Star Citizen. So if you are in an instance and you are leaving Terra and flying to, a neighboring system, you're probably going to be leaving that one instance and jumping into another and jumping into another and jumping into another. Now, what's going to happen is there's a lot of different factors that go into that. You may tag people as being your wingmen, so the system has to make sure that you're staying together in the same instances. And if that's going to happen, the global instance manager, the Galaxy server, actually needs to be able to take you from instance to instance together. It's also going to be the one that's responsible for making sure that you're not jumping into a server with 99% of the population being like one organization or something like that. So it's going to manage how you get flown around. And ideally what happens is it becomes seamless to where you may go through 20 different instances on a journey, but you're never going to actually be noticing that you've even changed instances. So that Galaxy server is the real key to success and how this is all going to look and play out in the end. Dan Giesling says, hey STL, loving your videos, thank you. Quick question, what do you use for pip shooting? It looks like that you use a non-traditional, non-leading pip. Dan, I alternate back and forth. I know I should probably stay with just one or the other to make sure that I'm being more proficient and being more comfortable, but sometimes it also depends on the different types of weapons that I'm using to what feels more natural. In general, I would say that lag pip feels a little bit more comfortable to me, although sometimes I feel like I can be a little bit more precise using the lead pip. So to answer your question, I bounce back and forth, but I think what you see in my videos more, now that I'm getting kind of second guessing myself, I think what you see in my videos more often than not is that lag pip. But frankly, it just kind of depends because I bounce back and forth because sometimes I see the benefit in one more than the other, and sometimes I like just playing with what my actual setup is. But that's a very kind of personal thing as far as what everybody's going to like more than the other. Sam Alexander says, can't wait for the game to be finally complete, but do you think the single greatest issue with Star Citizen is that 90% of the people want to be the captain, commander, fleet admiral, and no one wants to be the private? I know heaps of people who own heaps of ships, but they want to be able to run them all with AI alone. No matter how great of a game Chris creates, the AI will never be good enough. We just don't know about the tech in the future. What's your thoughts? Okay, so long question. To answer the assumption that you make in there that 90% of the people want to be the captain, the commander, the fleet admiral, that's just not the case. From being a leader in an organization for years and years and years, it's very apparent that there's a lot of people that don't necessarily want to step up and be in a leadership role. Either they don't feel comfortable in it, they don't feel confident in themselves, or maybe they just don't feel like the need or the drive or want the responsibility of commanding a fleet of people. And sometimes that can even involve just a larger ship. Now, I think there is going to be a contingent of players that want to fly. They don't want to just sit in a chair and play on a computer screen and change out what the shields are doing on your ship. But there's a lot of people that want to do that. And there's one big group of people that I think is going to target that type of activity, and it's because Star Citizen is so robust, and that's going to be FPS players. There is a ton of people, and coming from an organization that was playing like FPS type games before, there's a lot of people that want to come in and be able to do first-person shooter type aspects of this game, but don't necessarily want to fly. There's also a lot of people in this game that want to fly but don't want to do like those FPS activities. What I'm getting at is those people that just want to be kind of your run and gun, I want to be on the ground, I want to be a Marine, those types of people are going to have to get from point A to point B. And taking on a crew type of responsibility in the meantime is going to be a really good option for them. There's also people that play games like Guns of Icarus, where you're like a simulated bridge type environment where you're working together to really try and accomplish a common goal. Those are the people that are really going to enjoy taking on those other responsibilities, And then finally, there's going to be a lot of people that just know that in order to accomplish something great, you need to work together. And if you're using a larger ship, you need crews. I personally would rather fly more than running a crew station most of the time. But I know if an organizational operation, we're taking out like an Endeavor Hope, for example, and trying to do rescue missions. I don't need to fly the Cutlass Red Ambulance to go pick people up. I'm happy staffing a medical bay to try and, repair people and to heal them. Because at the end of the day, that's how we're making money as the organization. So there's a lot of different aspects, and I don't think that 90% of people is an accurate number. There's going to be people that fall into both sides of the camp, and it's just going to be whether people are willing to play together, and the people that want to do that are going to find each other naturally. Naya says, love your video as always, thank you. I have a question for you. If the game would suddenly fully launch with all the things that we currently know to be implemented, what would be the first thing that you would do in the persistent universe? Boy. That's a really tough question. I think for me, I would go for something that we haven't had to date. So I've done a lot of combat in this game. I've done a lot of just like racing and flying around and that sort of thing. So if I was to do something today that we don't have, it would probably be something like mining or operating as a crew on a really large ship. Like those types of things that are different from anything that we've experienced before are things that I think could be really cool. From a flying perspective, I think maybe flying a Cutlass Red and picking people up, or maybe taking a Redeemer and actually doing a hot drop of Marines and then providing fire support while they're fighting on the ground. Those are the types of activities that I think are going to be really cool. But I think at the end of the day, what I would really like to do more than anything is play in a large battle with my organization. Because today, there's only so much that we can do together in the game. That's a really big change and something I would really enjoy. Just the Tip says, hey Youngblood, love the content, keep it up. Do you know if Cloud Imperium will continue to develop and release ships after the game is launched? I know that we have quite a few ships already available, but I'd like to see new ships being produced as the time goes on, similar to a modern car company releasing a new car model. Maybe have an ad campaign to persuade people into buying it. That's absolutely going to happen. Not only is it going to kind of enrich the overall environment when you have more variety in the types of ships that are out there, I think it's also just kind of a goal for them to continue to do that. And I think when we look at the current ship roster, we've got so many that are in the pipeline. I think we just need to come to terms with the fact that not all of them are going to be available at release. They've also talked about going back and working with some of the next great Starship people to bring some of those ships to the game. So the Brutus, the Scimitar, some of those other ships that weren't actually chosen over the Redeemer. And I know that's kind of a hot button topic, but the ships that are not available today may end up being built and brought on later. So yes, to answer your question on the short, they are absolutely going to be bringing new models into the game. Powerman26612. Hey, I can't decide whether to get the Carrack or something of that price range. The reason I'm asking is that I'm worried I won't be able to make any profit, so I'm thinking maybe a Merchantman, Prospector, or the Large Hull. So, more expensive generally means bigger. Not always, but generally. And when you have bigger ships, you're generally talking about larger operating costs. Now, you also open up the possibility of larger profits. So when you start talking about the Hull series, if you've got the Hull E, you're going to have a higher possibility for profits over something like a Hull A. When you start talking about like a Carrack, for example, you probably have a higher chance of profits than something like a 315P. Now, the Carrack is a really interesting ship because while it is a dedicated explorer, it's also a very versatile ship. You can carry a lot of cargo on a Carrack. You can probably you definitely can do some nice exploration. You've got the rover, so you can do planetside exploration. You can also probably haul some goods around. There's a lot of different roles and responsibilities that you can take on in a Carrack. So I think that's a pretty safe bet as far as, choosing a ship. Things like a Merchantman is going to be very good at hauling. And I think anytime you start talking about hauling, you start talking about profits. Prospector, I think, is nice because like the Starfarer, you don't need to buy something in order to make the money. In most situations in this game, when you start talking about hauling goods, you're going to have to buy those goods. So you are automatically operating at a loss until you can sell them to make your profit. And some of that's going to be how well you play the market. There are probably going to be missions where you can say, I will take your goods from point A to point B, and they will just pay you a flat fee. My guess would be those probably don't pay as well as you creating your own type of buy low, sell high type of situation. But it also probably depends on what the risk is. If you take on one of those missions in a really dangerous area of space, it's going to come with a higher paycheck probably. So there's a lot of factors that come into play. But the Prospector's a nice one because you can just take the ship out, find some rocks to mine them, go back and sell them, and all you're really paying is your gas and any repairs that you need to. So, to answer your question, the Carrack is a really fine choice. I wouldn't worry about it too much. Any of the ships that you mentioned are going to be good. But if you want a variety of gameplay, I think the Carrack is a really sound bet. David Fulse says, do we know about navigation and how it'll be like? Can we say to meet someone at a specific coordinates in the middle of nowhere in space, and would we both meet there? Yes, assuming you guys get into the same instance, which you should be able to do, especially if you're just at some random area in space, yeah, you should be able to meet at the same coordinates. There's also been mention of the ability to have things like a beacon. So you can say, hey buddy, I'm emailing you my location. You can follow the beacon almost like a GPS of today. So yeah, you will absolutely be able to meet up with people based on coordinates, but there's going to be other ways that you can do it, kind of like waypoints, probably through your systems being interconnected. And for our Patreon questions of the day, we're going to start off with one from Rakish. It says, my question is around currencies and markets. What are the chances of having multiple currency types in the game? Is UEC a universal currency, or will traders need to take into account currency exchange rates when trading? Could players trade and affect currency rates? If the UEE and Terra were to split, would Terra create their own currency, and would that affect the UEC? When the game is to the point that the player-owned production is there, will the market, can we invest in both player and NPC-owned industries? So that's kind of a long question. I'm going to try and break it down. I haven't seen anything to date, and prior to answering this, I scanned through some of the 10 for the Chairman questions, and I may have overlooked it, but I haven't seen anything. But I'm going to make one big assumption here. UEC stands for United Earth Currency, I believe, is the terminology there. So knowing that, I have a hard time believing that the Banu or the Xian or the Vandal or the Teveran are going to be species that are going to take on and say, yeah, we're going to use this currency from Earth. So with that in mind, I'm pretty confident in saying that since it's not some generic term like credits, that we're going to see different currencies that are in place. Now, is it a one-to-one? Is there some different exchange rate? I would guess there's an exchange rate, and it probably is different things that are going to impact the economy. So, for example, if you say, for example, maybe the Banu have a really strong economy, so the dollar is weak there, or the UEC is weak there, then you may have a harder time, making a profit and trading with the Banu. Or if you do a job for the Banu, then you may end up getting Banu credit that ends up being worth more if you exchange it in Earth space. So I would guess there's going to be those types of things, not only just because it makes sense from kind of a lore perspective, but also because I think it makes sense from a deeper, really robust economy. And I know that's something that Roberts has talked about making in this game. As far as if the UEE and Terra were to split, I would imagine that Terra would probably create their own currency. Kind of like when in America, during the Civil War, all of a sudden we had Confederate dollars. It would probably be like that, but it would also be easy for them to retain the UEC just because it's a known denomination and they don't really have to change up their banking institutions as a result. As far as when we get to player-owned production, will there be like markets and can we invest? That's so far out, I have a really hard time answering that. I would guess that, yeah, you probably can do some sort of investment, but I have no idea. Shepard says, I fancy myself a chaotic neutral personality. And Star Citizen, in regards to the aliveness factor, will CIG attempt to have characters be more than good or evil, such as you either have players that are Jedi or Sith and nothing in between. I'd love to see the NPCs that suffer from moral conflicts and settle in on some gray area that I haven't seen outside of real life. Perhaps characters that reflect a Dirty Harry or Han Solo from Star Wars. Indiana Jones is a great character type that has a style that's not strictly good or evil. I feel like Mordin Solus from Mass Effect is a great example of a chaotic neutral. So, with this, I think that it's absolutely going to be there. I think there's going to be some really interesting characters that are built into the game. I think the one thing to keep in mind is that 90-10 ratio that we've talked about before. So there's 90% NPCs, 10% players. So if we're talking 10% players and there's over 1 million players, that means there's going to be 90 million NPCs out there. I don't think most of those are going to be scripted NPCs. Now, there may be some really interesting personalities that end up kind of being scripted into these types of characters, especially like really well-known smugglers, really interesting pirates. You know, there may be some people in this game almost like a Robin Hood type character. You know, the UEE probably is going to consider them evil, but you see what their actions are, and they're actually kind of just. So I think those types of things are going to be in here, and you might even see it as far as like the government goes. People running for Senate or maybe for Imperator. They may seem to be really good and shiny, but they're dirty politicians. Those are things that we're likely going to see. As far as how the everyday NPCs are programmed, boy, I don't know. I mean, I think you're going to see a lot of them that are good or evil. Help me! I'm a simple trader. Help me! I'm being attacked by a pirate, or the like the NPCs that we see today in the universe. You know, you have a chance to get out of here, or we're going to kill you. You don't leave, they start firing on you. Well, I would say that's definitely a bad character. We haven't seen real good examples today of kind of those characters that live in between, though I think for a really rich environment, we do need to see those types. Real players are going to fall into this category. And I mean, most people are going to fall into this category because they're going to want to experience everything the game has to offer. In order to do that, you're going to have to do some negative type of reputation type activities. So the long answer is what I just gave you. The short answer is you're probably going to see those kind of chaotic neutral type characters. I think the percentage of those types of characters is going to be relatively low, but they're probably going to be the more well-known characters in the verse. So that's going to be it for this episode of The Inbox. I'm going to try and get back to doing these a little bit more frequently, so if you have questions, get them in. Otherwise, I appreciate you guys watching. Have yourselves a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you guys later. Take care.